So I know that I'm Jean. Sorry, I'm Jean.
Yeah, first things
Author.
first, Jean.
I'm Jean, author.
I'm Candace, artist.
Anyway, I know that when this project over time it started at least 10 years ago, before Candace and I came together. And at one point, I was thinking of doing photographs to go with the teachings. At one point, I was thinking of doing me doing the art. One time, I was thinking of just writing a plain book. And at some point, I just had a really strong opening and feeling that nope, Candace is the one.
Well, and I had like put it out there a few times. Like if you ever need an artist to help you with these genisms, like as we used to call them, and making the visuals, like realizing them in some way, I was like, please let it be me. So I put that out there.
Okay, well, I'd kind of forgotten that. So when it came back up for me, it was like, oh, this is perfect. And when I approached, I went in completely innocently, like, yeah, so it works, putting it out
Yeah,
there. Um,
manifestation.
yeah, and so I was pretty excited, and we had many discussions on where the art direction was going to go. And Candace, let's give us a little bit of a
Yeah, yeah.
into that.
I dug up some of the like archive
Oh
from
my God.
late 2019, which was when we first started talking, and then throughout 2020, which was a weird year. So we didn't know what we needed to make it look like. We didn't know what we wanted. So I was just making everything. So here's some of the very earliest,
Oh my
very
God.
basic, simple sketches, just like, what about these colors? Like, how will we do the lettering? Like, what will it look like? And because we can do anything. So then there's no container, there's no boundaries, we had to see what we could do so that we could decide what we didn't want to do to help point us in the direction of what felt right for the teachings and for the cards.
Yeah,
So
because that reminds me, remember you're going to send me a whole collage pack and I was going to
yeah,
collage things. Oh, yeah, that was
I
a
was like, yeah, I know how we'll do it. I'll make all of these elements and you'll collage them together. That's still a good idea. It's a great idea.
really
But
good
yeah,
idea.
for whatever reason, we were like, yeah, no, that's not right. And so then we had all of this stuff. So I'm a calligrapher and I do book arts and marbled papers and stuff. So we had all of these different iterations where we were slowly sort of developing a little bit of a visual language, but also mostly just deciding what visual languages didn't work, what didn't
Yeah,
feel like the right fit at all.
right.
Um, and then, so as we did that, a lot of it was, yeah, just not this, not this. That's a practice in yoga.
Yes.
Neti neti, not this, not that. And then at some point we started to come up with some things. We started to develop some sense that, oh, something like that might work. Like not just that thing, but something like that. And one of the first ones that really stuck out to me, and this is not the one that we're going with, but it's beautiful as like something that really sings and is really possible, is this typographic teaching artwork that I did for the balance, the magic, and the logic, which is one of my favorite teachings in the book. But yeah, ultimately we were like, that's not the right thing, right? But in that same modality of neti neti, not this, not that, we started to get somewhere. We started to find a language that wasn't illustrating the teachings, wasn't, just laying flat and giving you something to look at while you thought about the teachings, but was really trying to give the teachings like a physical, an aesthetic body to live in, corporeal. And
Yes.
so then we started these guys, which I still considered sketches for a long time. And they were, card size, so I could start to figure out, what does that feel like and what are the scale. And ultimately, some of these actually made it. They made it into that final visual language that we developed. But then at that point, I knew we needed to go bigger. So these are now some of the final artworks for the deck. They got quite large. These are 6 by 9. And that's so that when they are photographed and reduced in size to be on the cards that they look as best as they can. There's a lot more information there so that there's a lot more information on the card. So they're all this heavy duty watercolor paper and ink and watercolor and pencil and sometimes a little bit of pastel or pigments that I use. And yeah, I think for a little while I thought we might go with oil paint and I might do small paintings. And that's pretty traditional in terms of tarot and oracle decks before the advent of a lot of the computer aided design. There were a lot of like oil or tempera paintings on paper or wood. But there's something really, really beautiful about working with the elements. So we became very inspired by working with water, air, fire, the earth of the paper, and that felt right. Plus, it's a very quick medium, so it's easy for me to make something up, and then Jean and I would meet and have our conversation, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I know what to do, to change that or to resolve it better. So yeah, it's just really amazing how far we've come from some of these very, very early sketches to some of
Yeah.
the much more resolved artworks. And it was a long evolution, but I mean, so worth it.
And I remember talking about colors and palette, and it really came out because I do quite a lot of some of my training, especially with Dennis Adams, has been in the use of color. And so when I started to see the colors that vibrated in me, I go, no, these colors, because Candace brought a full range of everything from earth tones to fluorescents and neons. And when we started to really hone in on what the color palette was going to look like, the vibrancy,
Mhm.
then I think for me, then the teachings really started to sing off the page and that thing, because a lot of times when we're working with color, we're dealing with emotional body stuff too, so that it's evoking some sort of an emotional resonance. And I don't mean necessarily emotions like sad, mad, happy, things like that, but maybe sometimes. But there's besides just flesh, there's another resonance that ripples when color is introduced. And this is not to say that if you can't see color, you're still not going to get the teachings. But that was part of it too. And so they've come so far. And I wanted to say one more thing and mention one more thing is the size 6 by 9 is a perfect size. I mean, Candace, just hold up a couple of them. And
Oh,
this is
sure.
the cool thing about the 6 by 9 sizes, even if you live in a very small if you live in a small place, you could get a 6 by 9 and easy to frame. And just do a whole series on your wall. I mean, these are
Mhm.
gorgeous.
And
So
they can be matted to set on an altar. They don't need to be framed and hung. They can be set on an altar or like a special space as well. They are a very reasonable size for display and like a nice big size for turning into an oracle card.
yeah, so
Mhm.
and 6 by 9 is kind of, sixes and nines are good numbers, master numbers, so we're good. Yeah, just in case, that's powerful. So thank you for taking us on that little deep dive and
Yeah.